Heaton, thank you for joining us. First of all, appreciate you doing this.
I am delighted to be back. Thanks for having
Uh,
me.
I very much enjoyed your musical. Please explain to folks what it was, because I have tried and I mostly just said, go listen, you'll enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted you enjoyed it because it was a tremendous amount of work, and so I'm glad somebody liked it. Yeah, to explain, back in July, when the first presidential debate happened between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, it was a colorful event that people had
Mm.
very strong thoughts on. And back in July, I went home like 11 p.m. and I stayed up till 5 and I made Debate the Musical in a very slapdash way, but it was funny. And I posted it on my podcast, The Political Orphanage. And I was surprised at the response that I got because there were a lot of people that went, "Thank you. I was really bummed out about the outcome of the debate. And that
Mm.
funny musical you put together made me feel better." And so kind of a light bulb moment went off in front of me. And I went, I know I can predict that the presidential election is going to happen on November 5th, roundabouts then.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's going to happen then.
Mm.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really, really good musical about the election. And so from end of July until November 3rd or 4th, I was working on a Broadway musical about our election. And it charts the course of the primaries through Biden dropping out, through Kamala being selected, and then it has its own unique ending that I did. And in order to do this, I relied on UDO and Suno and a few other side programs, and I built out my own musical using AI.
Now, I think a lot of people will jump to the conclusion when they hear me tease this topic that, oh, he used AI to make it quicker, to make it easier. If you started in July and it took you to November, that doesn't sound quick or easy. Can you tell us a little bit about all the work that went into it? How did you do this?
Yeah, so first, let me say right off the bat, for anybody that is concerned that I used AI rather than going the traditional route of having an entire cast and a librettist and a full band, I am very, very open for somebody funding this as a proper traditional musical. Reach out to me directly, and I would love to do all of that and not do any of the AI. But as one guy with a laptop, unfortunately, I was forced to resort to using technology as a means to get me into the process. So I don't really look at it as AI making it easier. I see AI as the thing that allowed me to do it at all. There is no way that I, on my budget, with my connections, could have put a musical together where I had an entire cast
Yeah, yeah.
and everything else. Certainly not in the time frame that I had. In terms of the time that went into it, um, if all you are doing is coming up with funny prompts and lyrics, and Suno and ChatGPT can write lyrics for you. In my experience, they're not good. I think the
Hmm.
lyrics so far and all of the LLMs that I've seen are fairly juvenile and elementary. There's stuff along the lines of, "Let me tell you my tale. I hope you don't think it's a whale." It's just not
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
So, but you could theoretically just go make a Broadway musical song about the president doing a bad job in a debate, and it'll spit something out for you, and it might be serviceable. If you want it to have any coherence, you want it to have any themes in it, as my musical does. There are two separate themes that reemerge throughout that are in Act One and Act Two because I've got an intermission, I've got everything. I try to treat it like a proper musical.
Mm.
If you're actually doing that where there's a thematic through line, it's going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. And then it'll be further complicated because if you're just putting a hodgepodge together, you can probably pull it off. In my case, I wanted to have characters that were coming through. So there's one voice that's doing Donald Trump consistently. There's one voice doing Kamala Harris. There's a voice doing Joe. There's two voices doing Joe Biden. But unfortunately, we are not at the point in this technology where I can put in give me baritone 32A. So
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to generate a lot. So long story short, to make what I did, I had to write all the lyrics myself, come up with a concept, come up with the jokes, and then when I had the lyrics, basically crank out insane amounts of iterations using UDO, narrow them down, prune them, then re-extend them, and then stitch them together with other iterations that are now further narrowed down by only being serviceable if they have the same voice as the previous one. So
Yeah.
it involved this was like a spaghetti cannon at the wall, and a lot of the craft that went into it was just like taking this massive Jackson Pollock amount of information and narrowing it down to something that becomes fun and coherent.
So you would put your own lyrics in, which I think a lot of people would be interested to know, and then get a version back and go, not quite right. Let me make a couple of tweaks. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that whole thing was a process in and of itself. So,
Yeah.
what I would do is look at rhyme structures. I've never written music before. I have written a poetry book, but I've never written rhyme structures for music. So I would write music or I would write the lyrics, and then I would run it through several iterations and listen for if it's a good tune or not. And then I would learn that, all right, that rhyme structure just doesn't work very well for music. By the way, I'm sure anybody that's properly trained in music would have been light years ahead of me in this, and I would recommend it because I'd love to see what you do. But I would come up with these rhyme structures, run it through, and I'd go, that's just not working. I thought that 8-8-10 structure would work. It doesn't seem to work. I'm going to try 10-10-7. Maybe that'll work. And so I would kind of get to the point where I know, regardless of how the outcome of these iterations are, that the rhyme structure itself will be salient. I would do that, and then I would let's say I create maybe 20 to 40 iterations of that particular song. They all have the same lyrics, and I'll listen and I'll go, okay, now I have to narrow it down. So like if it's a song with Donald Trump in it, I have to get a male voice that's a white male voice that is a tenor, and then you're narrowing it down and going, okay, which one do I actually like the sound of? Then there's a ton of stuff that I think will be ironed out. I'm very excited about this technology. I think it'll be ironed out over the next like 6 months, if not year, where just weird things would be pronounced weird. Like the word neocon, it drives me nuts. The word neocon is neocan. I just couldn't get it.
They couldn't do con. They couldn't do the con part.
Couldn't do the con. Well, because I would try to play with it. So I'd go in and go like neo khan or something.
Right.
It would. So I'd try to do it phonetically. One of the other things that I would do is I would find a song that I really liked. I liked the basic beat of it, and then I would crop it, and then I would regenerate it. So it was almost like coming up with different branches on a tree. And then I could kind of go from there and massage it in directions that I wanted to go. Or in the case of the songs that were thematic, I could take something and sort of use it as a base template for a later one. That way it would presage what was going to happen later. But yeah, it involved a lot of iterations, a lot of editing, and a lot of massaging to get it anywhere near being a coherent piece.
It strikes me that not only would you not have been able to afford to employ people to do this, but it would have taken much longer if you had people doing this, if you kept going back for iterations and saying, please change this, please change that.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. Every year on the Political Orphanage, I do or have done. I don't know if I'll do it this year because this took a lot out of me. But every year on the Political Orphanage, I usually do a Christmas special. I will note there's no AI involved or has never been involved in the Christmas specials. They're all comedy sketches, and there's a certain amount of favors that I can call in where I call up friends and go, I think you're very funny. Would you appear in this comedy sketch that I'm doing? Which I did in the musical too. The people talking are regular people.
Although you have the voices of Biden and Trump.
I do. That's me.
Yeah. That's you talking, but then you altered it, right?
I altered it. There's a program called what is it? It's not Vocal Remover. I think it's Voice.ai. Voice.ai has a thing where you pay like $20 a month or something like that, and you can upload your voice and then transmogrify it into, in my case, Biden and Trump. And with varying levels of success, but you definitely know who they are. The other voices are actors friends that I had that did the voice acting for me. For something like a sketch comedy thing where the commitment of my friends to work for free on my show is an hour, they're happy to do that. If I were looking to get actors who are going to do multiple rehearsals and are going to put up with me changing things as they go on, or in this case, I was planning to do 5 different variations of it, where the ending would be different depending on the outcome of the election. Having all of that occur as well would have been difficult.
Yeah.
And all of this would have been surmountable. And I should note, I love musical theater. It's why I did this. And I would love to have an entire cast that I could adequately pay to participate and pay them for all of that time. I do not have the funding to have 5 different full-time actors do, a month of
Yeah.
rehearsals and then do subsequent productions of it. It's just literally impossible. But as I said, I think that this technology is something that democratizes things. It allows schlubs like me to actually play around and get in it and get more appreciation for the whole process.
Before we go, I know a lot of people will want to know what you used, and you've mentioned the tools as we went along. But can you kind of summarize what tools you use so people could maybe take a stab at doing this themselves?
Yes, I primarily used Udio, which I've found to be the best. So the two that I'm aware of that are really, really useful for what we're talking about are Suno and Udio, and they're kind of in an arms race right now where they go
Hmm.
back and forth every month on new features. And so while I was using most of the time I was working on this, I think Udio was superior, but I think Suno has now jumped over and it's superior in various ways. But in general, at the time that I recorded, Udio was very good at just the quality of voices. Suno is now caught up, but at the time, Suno sounded kind of striated. It sounded like when they take like really poppy music and run it through an over processor, it sounded a bit like that. Whereas Udio sounded much more organic and natural. I don't think you'd frankly know that it was AI unless you
Hmm.
were on the lookout for it. Udio was the one that I mostly used, and you could put in the lyrics. If you go to the advanced features, it'll give you 30 seconds or 2 minutes. I would go to 2 minutes. I'd put in the lyrics. I would note verse one, chorus, bridge, verse two, all of that, and then crank it out and then further crop it and extend it. Suno, where I used Suno that I found useful is that Suno has a feature where you can upload a track and then you can make a cover of that track in a different musical style.
Mm.
So I had previously made a lot less AI because it's very much a monologue episode. But the week before, I had done a tribute to A Prairie Home Companion by Garrison Keillor. It's very much following that format. And so I took the theme show to the Political Orphanage and I ran it through there as a bluegrass thing. So
Mm.
you could do that. But with the AI musical, I would take one of my favorite songs, which is Donald Trump singing about how much he misses Joe Biden as the election actually gets competitive.
Hmm.
I took that song. I used Vocal Remover to remove the Trump voice so that it was just the instrumental. And then I fed that into Suno and said, give me a Broadway musical version of this. And it's already a Broadway musical version, but what it ended up doing was giving me lots of variations of that central theme that I could use as a bed of music for any narration that I wanted to do that would still be presaging that eventual song
Yeah, yeah.
coming. But I would say primarily I used Udio by like 90%, Suno by 10%, and then for the very meandering Joe Biden monologues, I used voice.ai. There's one Trump monologue in there, voice.ai as well. And then a program called vocalremover.org, I believe. Or if you put in vocalremover.org in your search results, I think that would turn up the correct thing. There are several programs like that where you can add a
Mhm.
song, you can remove the voice or isolate the voice. And I found that to be quite helpful over the course of editing things.
Fantastic, Heaton. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. If people want to find out more of what you've got going on, like listen to this episode, for example, where should they go?
Yeah, I would. If you're remotely interested in this, check out the Political Orphanage. This episode is on any podcast platform that you've care to go to. It's called Our Dumb Election, the Musical. I will note for everybody. I realize everybody's in a very different emotional space right now. There's a very wide range of emotional latitude. Please note, one, I am a comedian, and as such, I made fun of everybody. There's nobody in this that comes off as the good guy. Like it's a big hole that I'm shoveling jokes into. And the reason that I did that was that I anticipated people being sad about the outcome of the election. I did not know who would be sad or who would be happy. But for the sad people, this is more for you because I wanted to give people some jokes so that you could, have some pep in your step, even though you're worried about things. So my point is, if you're like musical, I don't want to celebrate. Really, if you just like laughing and you like musicals, this is for you. You're not going to feel targeted. You can find it on whatever podcast platform you want. I also put it up on YouTube. An animator named Paul Gibson teamed up with me so that we've got animation. Looks kind of Muppet-ish
Oh, nice.
as the people are singing, but there's visuals and things. Primarily audio, but it's not static. So you would look for the Political Orphanage on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you want, and then the relevant episode is Our Dumb Election, the Musical.
Fantastic. And if you were like, wait, did Heaton say he did a book of poetry? The book is called Los Angeles is Hideous, so you can look for that as well. Thank you again, Heaton.
Thank you, Tom.